Thanks very much, Jan, and thanks very much initially to Holger for the invitation. I feel a degree of weight on my shoulders to represent the College of Health and Medicine, but it is a great pleasure to do so. And a lot of what Professor Hayward has spoken to us just now about actually really resonates with a number of the points I'm going to make today. So I'll have a bit of a global concept to talk about with regard to the college, and then I'll drill down to a couple of areas where food and nutrition intersect very much with the field of research that I take a lot of pleasure in investigating. So when we consider the College of Health and Medicine, for those of you who don't know, we have the two schools of health science. One that I look after is health science, and then the School of Medicine that Ben Canny, who's in the audience, looks after. And then we have Menzies, the Medical Research Institute, and the Wicking Centre, which is a centre to deal with the challenging problem, the growing problem in the society of dementia. And what you'll see on our this is our homepage for the college, is we have at the back here sort of the better health theme, and we're moving from the better health theme into a new cluster of research focuses around flagships, and a body of work that was led by Professor Tracy Dixon, who worked within the leadership group of the university, of the college, and then across the college to look at our focuses for the research strategy of 2018, a decadal strategy for 18 to 28. And you'll see that there is, for health, a range of areas of focus we're interested to consider neurodegenerative diseases, consider prevention and management of chronic disease, and also a molecular genetics theme to health and disease. And then a number of mechanistic ways of looking at research, from biomedical through clinical health sciences through to the public health and to the service delivery. And at the moment, we are very much focusing on these flagships of multiple sclerosis, dementia, and obesity research. And so the latter part of the presentation will focus very much on obesity, as I think this is one of the most obvious intersections between TIA and health. In terms of research focus, we can think very much about the methods that we use in human nutrition or exercise physiology, and how these methods can actually be used across different dimensions, and certainly within the areas that others will talk about today. So we do a lot of work to understand the human in as many ways as we can, in terms of our body composition, our energy expenditure, both resting as well as activity and the total energy expenditure. Our group uses a lot of stable isotopic methodology, which is again an area of interest to others in the audience. And we use it to measure total energy expenditure, but understand protein turnover, gastric emptying rates, and a number of other human health functions. We look at exercise performance, and while I have a background in exercise physiology, you can't measure body composition or understand the value of food and to sort of driving exercise physiology without understanding nutritional physiology. So in this slide, I've just provided a number of the areas that we're very much interested in, different cohorts, and also different impacts of nutrition and exercise physiology. We have a range of methods, which I won't go into in any great detail, to measure body composition very accurately. And we use also a number of different methodologies to break human energy expenditure down into its component parts. And it's only when we understand the different components of human energy metabolism that we can understand how food intersects with how we burn energy, how we use energy, and how we store energy within the body, which is very much a result of the way in which we then function and it impacts our health. So as I mentioned, we use a lot of stable isotopic methodologies. One of the techniques, doubly labelled water, allows us to measure deuterium, and using deuterium measurements and oxygen 18 to measure human energy expenditure. We do a lot of work in our group with the International Atomic Energy Agency, which a lot of people often think about when they're thinking about sort of nuclear and bombs, but they also have a very important role within understanding human energy metabolism and understanding nutrition and body composition across the developing world. One of the methods that we use is deuterium dilution, enables us to do research, as I mentioned, right across the world to understand the body composition and energy expenditure, not just of the mothers, but also of babies. So in the process of a mother being able to take in a dose of deuterium in an exclusively breastfed situation, the baby then takes on that labelled isotope, and we can measure both from saliva and from urine. We can measure then the total body water, and that then gives us the ability to measure body composition in both mother and baby. And we've had the opportunity now to be considering the lifespan. We're very interested in understanding from fetal programming how the intrauterine environment enables or disables healthy growth and development. And there are a number of time points which are important for us to consider in terms of human health. There are critical periods through which, if we can better understand how nutrition and exercise or physical activity intersect, we'll have a better understanding of how and when to intervene and make sure that that there is the healthiest lifestyle possible. As I mentioned, we do a lot of work with the International Atomic Energy Agency, and one of the areas that we're most interested just at the moment is understanding what is the growth trajectory of babies in the first year of life. And then many people will understand the growth curves that are available, and they're really height-weight curves, and there's not as much information available on body composition across that first year. And so we've been fortunately funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation to undertake an arm of an international study here in Launceston to measure babies across the first year of life to understand the changes in their body composition. And so we have the opportunity through using a P-pod, which is a air displacement plethysmography, which basically is Archimedes' principle of air displacement. We can measure body composition of babies at multiple time points across that first year of life. So we've been given the opportunity to do this in Launceston, but we're expanding this into Hobart as well as the Northwest. And what that then gives us the opportunity to do is to consider a cohort study of all births in Tasmania, which could be the start of a really great longitudinal study. And it is about the longitudinal study that we're most interested, because it's important for us to understand how people age and at what points in life we can intervene and make sure that health is optimised. So we've got two curves here. The first is the ideal curve. If we can consider age on the x-axis and muscle mass and strength on the y-axis, we could, in this sort of pictorial representation, we will always achieve a peak of lean mass and a peak of strength. But if we can maintain that across the adult life, it means that there's a chart that we will delay and possibly even prevent people hitting a disability threshold, in which their mobility is limited. What unfortunately can happen is if nutrition is not optimal, this peak is lower, and if activity is not optimal, again the peak is lower and the rate of decline is exacerbated. And there is a sort of a combined problem of having what's referred to as obesity and sarcopenia. So sarcobesity, which is obesity or an increase in fat mass around the abdominal area, and a reduction in lean mass, particularly in the limbs. And together, this is a sort of a problematic combination, because it means people move less. It means that obesity can then increase again, and we end up with metabolic disorders such as insulin resistance, with a precursor to type 2 diabetes. So in terms of a life course approach, what we're really interested in is understanding nutrition and physical activity at different points in time across the life course, and understanding what is that relationship with chronic disease development. If we move then to the obesity end of the spectrum here, we're very interested in understanding why are we designed to gain fat, and why is it very difficult to lose weight? And so this is one of the areas that we spend a lot of our research time in. So in essence, we could suggest that we were designed a long, long time ago. Our genes were formed at a time when when food was not constantly available. And so we're very good at storing energy. And we're very much driven to find energy to consume. We have, within our brain, we have a feeding centre and a satiety centre, and the feeding centre is more dominant. So we're driven to find food and to consume. But it's not quite so simple as that. We have a whole range of intersecting components, and this is what we have the ability here now at UTAS to do, is to measure each of these components, so to better understand the consequences of what occurs when we take food into the body, and if there is an imbalance, how to interact to regain that balance. So one of the areas that I'm most particularly interested in is understanding if we're trying to lose weight, if we consider it like golf, you hit the golf ball and hopefully it goes into the hole. If it's like my golf, it doesn't do that. And so we can end up with errors off the tee, so miscalculations right from the get-go. So good measurements prevent this error off the tee. But even if we get the measurements right and we give someone the right amount of energy and we're trying to estimate the amount of weight that they'll lose, commonly what occurs is people will fall off this line. And there are a range of reasons why that's the case. And so we're interested in understanding adaptive thermogenesis. So what I will do is just, because I've been given the wrap-up, which is appropriate, what I just want to do is say that there are a range of intervening factors, and we're interested in understanding each of these factors and how they intersect to change the obesity profile. And one study which we've recently undertaken, which was to look at intermittent versus continuous dieting. And when we put individuals on an intermittent diet, so they went on energy restriction and then into balance and then back onto restriction, they lost more weight than when we put people on a continuous energy restriction. So we're interested in understanding the mechanisms of why this occurs and why people regain weight far more readily when you put them on a continuous diet than if you put people into and out of energy restriction. And I will leave you with one thought here, that it's been reproducibly shown that we get fatter when we age. And ageing without getting fatter tends to mean that we lose lean body mass. So the question could be, are we programmed to get fatter as a strategy to limit the amount of lean mass that we lose as we age? So if we want to remedy this, there is an area that we're interested in, is looking at, can we take cycles of helping people, particularly sarcopenic obese adults, to gain fat tissue, in which case they gain lean tissue at the same time. But it's easier for us to lose lean mass, lose fat mass at a faster rate than lean mass with an appropriate exercise intervention along with the diet. And so for this to be the case, we could actually improve people's lean mass as they age by cycling the amount of food that they consume at different points in time. And so there's a lot of areas that we need to consider for human health. And one of those intersections is with understanding animal nutrition. There's a lot of interesting data which is available in how to get the right yield of lean mass gain in cattle. And I think there's a great intersection between understanding human nutrition needs and the real vast data that's available already in agriculture, and it's something that I'm really interested to explore further. Now, Holger will recognise this view. I just have to say that I had a wonderful week in Freiburg, and Holger was a great host. You can see that there was a lot of fun wandering around Holger's homeland and getting a taste of the wine. And it made me think, when I was considering last night the Gordon Gekko view of the world, that greed is good, greed is right, greed works. I'd like to change the concept that collaboration is good, collaboration is right, and collaboration works, and it can be incredibly fun when we do it well. Thank you.